This is the Ridge Hunter Outdoors podcast. What's up, everybody? This is episode 63 of the Ridge Hunter Outdoors podcast. It's me and Nate. Today, whenever you're listening to this, I'd actually thought about getting together and trying to record an intro, come up with something, and record our own intro.
We could do that.
I'll just have to, I could probably use this to record it, but do our own original thing.
We could do that. I could play it. You'd need somebody else to figure out, tell me what to play. You would have to tell me what to play.
Right.
Somebody else have no creative
Well, we'd have to
ability.
come up with something.
I have no creative ability.
We could surely piddle around and find something that sounded okay.
But if you give me a track of what I'm supposed to play, I can play that.
Yeah. No, I had that thought, though. I actually had that thought a long time ago, and it kind of forgot about it, but we should try to do that sometime.
Yep. I have listened to enough of the steel slides on the Duck Dynasty stuff.
Yeah.
When there's a strange pause or something, we could throw in the, the strange, about a 3-fret slide. We could do that.
I'd wear that button out with Jeff talking.
Me too.
Me too. No, today I got a couple things I want to talk about. I was telling you a little bit about that one before, and then just some statistics that came out from the NDA the other day that I saw while I was scrolling Instagram. Actually, both of these I saw while I was scrolling Instagram the other day. Imagine that. Now, the first one, I'll show you this, and I'll kind of explain what we're looking at since everybody listening can't see it. So there's this buck, and I won't say who posted it because we kind of know him. It looks like he has gotten in a fight with a barbed wire fence or maybe a cat, something. Anyway, he has this wound where his fur is kind of almost detached but still around him. And it looks to be 2.5, 3.5-year-old deer. 3.5 of the oldest. Who knows, because he's probably pretty malnourished at that point, right?
Gosh.
So he could be 3.5. The question was, so he's got this pretty severe injury, right?
You're saying barbed wire fence or a cat. I'm thinking disc hay mower.
Yeah.
Or potentially like one of them boats out there on the ocean with the 5 motors stretched on, and he got run through the props.
It's
neither of those is very likely for a buck in the winter.
Well, yeah.
That looked awful.
He's got a significant injury.
I've never seen anything like that.
Like you look at it and think, whatever it was probably should have killed him, but it didn't. And he had a little something going on with his head too. But
yeah,
the way he was acting and walking almost seemed normal, So there was a ton of comments, and apparently this deer, I'll have to throw this in now, lived for like 2 more years.
Wow.
And somebody found him dead after that. So he lived to be either 4.5 or 5.5. I'm really leaning towards 5.5 because I figure, depending on when that happened, he was big enough that he could have been a 3.5-year-old deer there. Because
he had a nice rack. He really did.
Yeah. And for the body size, given that injury,
didn't have to.
All of his nutrition and anything he's getting is probably going to go towards fighting whatever is going on there. Because he's going to have all kinds of issues with infection and all that, and the healing process itself. So he lived to be at least 4.5, maybe 5.5. I'm leaning towards 5.5. But the question is, would you have shot that deer? And then I'll add some caveats in too. But because everybody in the comments was like, just not everybody, but a good portion of the keyboard warriors were in the comments bashing them, because that's what we as hunters do, right? We just say whatever you're doing's wrong if it ain't what I would have done. So they were bashing him for not shooting that deer and just letting it walk instead of putting it out of its misery or whatever. Yeah. And everybody was on their high horse about ethics.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, you personally, and I was wanting to ask the other two guys too, but what you would have done in that situation. Just straight up, what would you have done? And then I'll add some more stuff. Because there's a lot of different variables.
So he was moving good.
Yep.
He really was moving good. And it wasn't a fresh injury.
Right.
Because there wasn't any blood on there.
He wasn't just dripping in blood. No, that's another thing I should have mentioned. It was I mean, it was dry.
Yeah.
Per se.
All that stuff was scabbing over, like on the back of his neck. You could see he was moving good. I always feel bad for those ones you see that's carrying that leg and just look like they can't hardly go. You know, those are the ones that can't go, the ones that can't move. Those are the ones I think, man, they run into 2 or 3 coyotes, you know, and they're just going to get stretched out, you know, because they can't get away.
Yeah, they have no chance.
Those are the ones that I feel bad, and I'd like to see those, you know, not go like that.
Right.
That guy was moving good. He wasn't a bad buck. I mean, he wasn't no giant.
No.
But he wasn't a bad buck.
We'll just say for vagueness, between 120 and 135.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be too specific because I'm sure some other people have seen it.
No, that guy, I mean, if I didn't have a buck I was specifically hunting, I'd probably let him have it, because I didn't have something I was really wanting to kill, and he ain't horrible, but I mean, he was pretty beat up too. You know, I mean, he ain't no shoulder mounting him.
No,
You know?
not unless you got another cape.
Correct. Man, that's a tough one. He was moving good though. He really was.
Yeah.
You know. When they're moving super slow is when I always, you know, it's when my mind always goes to that.
Yeah, if you saw the back half of that deer moving through the brush, you'd have no idea there was anything wrong with it.
Correct.
Even if you saw the back half in his nose or his rack, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I don't know. That's a tough one. If I didn't have a buck I was really hunting, you know, or know of anything nice in the area, I'd go ahead and kill him, I think.
Okay.
But I ain't saying that it's a for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna do it in the name of, you know, doing him a favor,
right?
Finishing up the inevitable. I ain't gonna say that I do that,
right?
100% of the time. Seeing that one there,
and that's even without knowing he lived for 2 more years. I kind of was thinking the same thing as you are. Like he is getting along. He doesn't appear to be, I mean, obviously he's probably in some pain, but I figure most wildlife is probably pretty miserable most of the time. You know?
Yeah.
But they're also tough because they got to live outside.
Correct.
And that's the reason they only live for 4 or 5 years anyway, you know, 7 on a good one. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think I probably do the same thing they did and just film it, unless, like you said, maybe I don't have anything specifically I'm looking for. And here's where we get in some of the caveats of it. Like in Illinois, we got 2 tags.
Correct.
So if I've got 2 tags left and I don't know of any bucks that I'm specifically wanting to kill, probably shoot that deer because, like you said, he is a decent buck.
Yeah.
And he is pretty mangled.
Yeah.
But, again, not just in the name of putting him out of his misery. So now let's say you've got 1 tag left. Or you only have 1 tag to start with because, like, say, Iowa, unless you got, you know, landowners and other types of tags, we'll say you got 1. I think maybe Kansas, you can only have 1, especially as an out-of-state. So we'll say you got 1 tag. Let's go. Yeah, we'll just start there. You've got 1 tag. Shooting him, letting him walk.
Oh, man.
And let's say there's decent deer. You know that there's decent deer in the area.
I know that I got some good ones around.
Yeah, maybe not monsters, but...
Man.
Let's say he's on your property this year with those 3 deer that you had. Before you had seen him on the hoof.
Yeah. He's similar in size to that one that Kaylee was calling the Circle 8. He's similar in size. I mean, pretty similar in size to that deer.
Yep.
And I had no want to kill that deer whatsoever. Because I knew what else was around.
Right.
I wasn't even super excited about shooting them.
Right. But you hadn't seen him yet, so you didn't know.
Correct.
Like on the hoof, obviously
correct.
you knew.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. I don't know. You're 1 tag and you know that you got something else you'd a whole lot rather shoot if you're going to. Yeah. That's, man, that's a tough one. He was moving so good.
Yep.
You know, if, for me, that's what it comes circles around back to, like the ones that just can't go. You know, they're busted up. They take 2 or 3 steps and they just stand. You know, because you know they hurt.
Yep.
Those are the ones.
And something else is for sure going to get them.
Yeah. Coyotes is going to catch them.
If you don't shoot them, they're dead the next week.
Yeah. Coyotes is going to catch them.
Yep.
And stretch them out. Yeah. I hate the idea of that.
Right.
But yeah, that he was moving so good. Infection would be a rough way to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, it did just look flesh and hide.
Yeah.
Versus what was scabbed over and you couldn't see underneath.
Yeah.
But again, he was moving so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's moving good enough. He could jump your string still yet.
And, for sure. He jumped that fence.
Yeah.
There is a part of that where he jumped coming into. I don't know if it's a fence or not, but he jumped something coming into the field.
Yep. Man, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd want to use my only tag on that.
I sure think I'd probably let him walk.
Yep.
Especially let's say you drew an Iowa tag.
Ooh.
And now you're on either lease ground or public ground in Iowa. We'll say you're on lease ground because public ground I'd probably shoot that deer anyway. But lease ground in Iowa, you've drawn your one tag in the 3 years or whatever you've been drawing for
You're
it.
in the Mecca.
I'm passing him.
Yep.
I know there's other deer bigger than him. He looks like he's gonna make it.
Yeah.
I'd have done what they did, just videoed it probably.
You're looking for the high school bucks.
Yeah.
And then here comes like the 7th grade bully who just got beat up.
Right.
And
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just ain't there.
That's the thing too. Like, and I think some guys will use that as an excuse. I've seen it. Guys use it as an excuse. Not even a deer that size, but like 100-inch buck or even like a 4-corner or spike. Well, I just killed him and put him out of his misery.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a nick on his right knee, I think he was all right.
Yeah.
They're just using that as an excuse to kill a deer because they wanted to kill something.
Chased a doe half a mile to get to you.
Exactly.
And you watched it.
Yeah. But he was limping when he got there. His tongue was out. But I think some guys will just use that as an excuse, which I think is dumb. I think if you want to shoot that deer, shoot that deer.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to make an excuse about it. But I do think that's probably where some of those guys were coming from.
Yeah.
Some of those guys, I'm sure, that were commenting that stuff don't see bigger deer than that.
True.
So they just shot him whether he was healthy or not.
Yeah.
So they're just going to scream that those guys are unethical and all that because they're jealous of what they have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has a lot to do with it. But I also don't think, to a point, we have to be stewards of the deer and all that, right?
Yeah.
And our resources.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there comes a point where it isn't our place to decide some of that stuff. Like what you're saying, if you got that one that's really mangled up and you just know. And even in that situation, I think if, let's say you got one tag and it's that same buck, if you don't want to shoot him, it's not. It is the wild, they die like that every day.
Correct.
But at the same time, I think it's, I would shoot that deer if I thought he was going to get stretched out by coyotes, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think in that situation, I shoot him.
I'd hate to see anything go that way.
Yeah.
I know it happens every day, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I'm with you. But at the same time, if someone would, and I wouldn't post a video of that either, if someone posted a video of a deer like that, I would be more apt to talk to him about posting the video of the deer rather than letting it walk. Because honestly, even in that situation, if you don't shoot that deer because you've only got one tag, or even if you have two and you just think you've got a chance to kill, 2 other nice bucks, and you just didn't want to burn it on that deer, you just let him walk because maybe, and I think there's options. You probably call a DNR. They might come put him down. But if you didn't know that and you just let him walk, I'm still not going to jump on and bash you on the internet about how horrible of a person you are and how poor ethics you have.
Yeah.
Because I think it's still a personal decision.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I don't think that's our. It is our place and it ain't our place. I guess I don't know. I think there's so much gray area there.
Yeah.
It's not like a definitive. Because if it is our place, then we're not doing a very good job because we don't. There's so many of them that die that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's hard to say that it is our job to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I do think maybe if they're put there in front of you, in my opinion, I'm going to shoot it because I've got that opportunity. Not that obviously you have the opportunity to kill all of them that are like that, but I think it. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of gray area there when you're talking about it being ethical or not.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to scream ethics at a person for letting a deer like that walk. Even a deer that's, is not going to make it, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
You know?
That one was moving just pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Now, if
He
you're
really
talking
was.
about, I seen a video one time of a deer had its head stuck in a tree or something, and these guys just went up to it and were beating it or whatever, and I think they even got arrested.
Oh, man.
That's an ethical issue to me.
Yeah.
In that situation, do I think you have to kill that deer? No, but maybe try to get him out of the tree.
Yeah.
At the very least, don't go up to it and, abuse it.
Yeah.
But that's an ethical issue to me versus not shooting one that's going to die anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I'm in the same boat you are. If it's one of those where because I hate to see that for them,
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to kill them.
And very rarely do we, in my opinion, actually see how tough these things really are. Because one time I had this little buck, and he just carried this one leg, and he never would get close enough. I'm thinking, if you'd come over here, I'd shoot you, because he just moved so slow. He wasn't doing any chasing or anything, I just always saw him. He was just trying to make it out of the thicket to the food, and that's about all he ever did.
Yep.
One day I seen him run. I was like, my gosh, ain't nothing wrong with him.
Right.
He could go.
Yep.
Now I know that he hurt, but he still could go. And I thought he might come out of that, You have no idea what them things can survive and stuff. There's a guy that we both know. Not this season, we're just finishing the 21 and 22 season. He was after this buck that was very clearly hurt when he was growing.
Yep.
That summer, he grew this big wild double beam side, and he carried that one leg a little bit, not too bad, but a little bit. He moved kind of slower, but he still chased and everything.
Mm-hmm.
This year, he did just fine. He grew back completely normal. He lost all that funkiness. But definitely still the same deer, though. He's got some incredibly identifiable characteristics. Legs fine. He does whatever he wants to do all the time. He's like 5 or 6 years old now. Super mature buck.
Yeah.
And if you'd have shot him for saying, he's got that hurt leg, he's healed up, he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
He got his rack back the way he used to be.
Yep. And that's, I think, another case of us thinking about it in, like, human terms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you see some guy dragging a leg around, like, get him to a doctor or something, or put him out of his misery. But we don't live outdoors in the harsh, and we're not built to either, like
Correct.
These things are.
Yeah.
24/7, 365, they're out there.
Yeah.
Rain, snow, shine,
Yeah.
hail, whatever, tornado, they're out there.
Yep.
Which is, again, also why their lifespan's, like, at the most 7, 8. You see some in captivity live for 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 11.
Yep.
But they're built for that. And most of the time, it's, again, 7 years they're only going to live anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just so much tougher than us when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because they're made to be.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to go through that stuff living out in the wild.
Yeah.
Every hour, every minute of the day.
Yep.
Which is something I don't think we think about.
Yeah.
When it comes to evaluating how much either pain they're in. Because I don't know. Maybe there's been some studies done on it. I don't know how. I'm not a scientist by any means. If they can determine how much pain, like, a certain species or animal feels.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it's not the same as us.
Yeah.
Like that deer that he's got that crippled leg. It probably is not the same on a pain scale to him as it would be to us.
Potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I would assume.
Yeah.
If I've got my leg half cut off, I'm not running anywhere.
Yep.
I might drag myself if I'm scared, but I ain't running anywhere.
You might quit chasing the ladies.
Exactly. Huh? Yeah.
We're going to go lay down.
Yeah. I ain't still going to try to breed them, But so I think there may be some of that goes on too. But
yep.
Back to
you spook them and those things take off and they just bounce off of trees and stuff, trying to get away from you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. They surely they're made different.
Yep.
They are.
Which is circling back to my point there is we don't think enough about them as the wild animals they are. I think sometimes when judging that kind of stuff, we think about what we would be thinking and going through, not understanding that it's a wild animal, and that's the kind of stuff they deal with every day.
Yeah.
So, like you're talking about, that one that's just kind of got a bummed up leg, maybe it's something serious. Majority of the time, he's probably going to be fine the next year.
There's a good chance.
And even if he's not, he's probably still going to be well enough to live,
Yeah.
you know, especially a bigger deer. Now, if you've got a small deer like a fawn that's got a bummed up leg and ain't moving too good, I mean, she's probably good as gone.
Yeah.
Him or her.
Yep.
But if you got a mature buck, if he's just a little bit slower, it's still going to take a pretty good group of ballsy coyotes to want to take him down.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, they got to be really hungry or a good group of them because you just don't see that very often unless one's really bummed up.
Yeah.
So that's something I think we lack thinking about into those situations too. But, yeah, on that original, like the video we were talking about, and I would tell you guys who it is and all that, but so you could go look it up. But I'm just going to keep that anonymous because to avoid any crap with that. So, but on that one, I think we're probably on the same page. Like, he seemed like he was getting along good enough. Even not knowing he lived the next 2 years, I would have guessed he probably was fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he had a good chance. Yeah. I wouldn't say that because who knows what's going on underneath there. But the way he was getting around, it looked like, I mean, I absolutely believe he lived another 2 years. You know, I don't think they'd be making that up.
Yeah. So. I know that the neighbors made they shot a buck in the guts like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. He would only get on me. I would get his picture on one of my cameras, the very furthest one closest to their property. I'm about 3/8 of a mile from their property where they were seeing him. He'd hit one of my cameras on the edge about every 3 or 4 days. Sometimes it's in the daylight, so I was wishing I'd be there, but it never happened. I only saw him one time when I was driving around on a bitter cold morning where I did not go, and I wish I would have went, because if I'd have went, the stand where I would have went to, that was the spot that he was standing out.
He was there in daylight? Yeah.
Yep, him and about, 8 or 10 does standing out there, and I just could not believe my eyes when I saw that. But it was also about 5 degrees that morning with a super loud, crunchy snow. You know, there's a good chance I would have spooked everything within 200 yards.
Yeah, right.
Walking in. Anyway.
You're pretty nimble.
I'm about as nimble as a water buffalo. But the neighbors shot him in gun season. They said they shot him in the guts. They said they knew that they were up off of his belly a decent ways and just hit him pretty much midship. Apparently they missed the liver. If they hit liver, he wasn't bleeding much. But they said they stayed with him the next, I forget, but they stayed with him long enough to where they could see that he had leaves on his side, like where he had laid and got leaves stuck to him, and apparently got the bleeding coming out stopped. But I thought, he's dead somewhere. I thought, there ain't no way you can put something through the middle of him and the thing live. You know, I mean, through the cavity, not the vitals, but through his abdominal cavity. You've got to have hit guts. You perforated those. He's going to have nasty infection. I mean, I see that stuff in people all the time, doing what I do, you know.
Yep.
I mean, people dies from that all the time.
Yeah.
I guess we're circling back to how tough these things with fur are, you know. But anyway, that thing, they never did find him. They went the next day to the woods where he went to, you know. And they said they searched everywhere. They got a dog in there, and they said they couldn't find no blood. They couldn't find nothing. I thought, he's in a briar patch or a thicket somewhere, you know, like watch for buzzards. He's going to be there.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. The next year, the neighbor kids, the other direction, 2 miles, about 2 miles from where that deer was last known to be, they found his sheds. He was a big, slick 12-pointer. They found his sheds 2 miles east. I'm in between the two patches, you know. Yeah. They found his sheds. There ain't no way that there was another buck like this.
Right. You knew it was him.
170-inch slick 12, you know, but with some pretty identical little characteristics. And the neighbors found those sheds. And I never knew that deer to be that direction. You know, I always knew him to be the other way. But he lived from, November 20th, November 18th, right in their first gun season, you know, a few years ago. Yeah. And he lived long enough to shed his horns over there, you know, the other way. Right. I'm thinking, good grief, that you would have never convinced me that was, you know. Also never know of any buck don't have any idea what else happened to him.
Right.
Because I never had any other pictures of anything that what I thought could have been him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal to happen to him. He might have changed. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. He could have just stayed where he, that far away.
Or his rack characteristics, I never saw another deer that I thought could have been him.
Right.
But anyway, I would have never, ever, I would have told you that there wasn't no way that could have happened, that he could have lived with a gut shot. And I believe the neighbors hit him where they said they did. They said he was perfectly broadside, and they just put it through his guts. I don't, whatever happened.
Yeah.
And they know they hit him about midship and up off the belly quite a ways,
Yep.
Whatever happened.
Yeah, and you shoot one of us like that, we're dead in what, a day?
I ain't walking.
Without any medical treatment?
Yeah.
Just laying down in the leaves?
Yep. Come get me.
Yeah.
Drag me out.
No, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, and that guy, he took off across the field.
Yep.
He went a quarter mile across the field to another patch of woods, where he wanted to be back in.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of the first nice deer I shot. It's been well over 10 years ago now. And, I mean, he was at 10 yards, and I was only probably shooting 50-some pounds at the time, but good fixed blade broadhead and just smacked that dude in the shoulder, right in the shoulder. Got, I don't know, 13, 14 inches of the arrow in him. Maybe not that much. Maybe not quite that much, but I thought I'd smoked him when I first hit him. Of course, it was right at first daylight, and I couldn't tell. I didn't have a lighted nox at that time. Aluminum arrows. So I had some, even shooting 50 pounds, I had some pretty good kinetic energy. But anyway, I mean, it just smacked him. And he run off, and then he stopped like they do. And he went walking through the woods. And we got down, waited a while, and we started tracking him. And, I mean, it looked like you just took a bucket of red paint and threw that thing through the woods. All the way through the woods, tracked him across the field, tracked him across the neighbor's property there where we were up, around where we were at, looking for that deer I was talking about earlier. And through a creek, somehow we caught a little speck of blood coming up out of the creek where he'd come up out of it. And when we come up out of there, we saw a deer turn on a dime, full sprint, going back to the north, and we're just sure that was him. So in the span of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 800 yards or whatever it is, he went from hit that hard, bleeding that much, to sprinting right back across the field like nothing ever happened. Never did find the deer. I didn't kill him. That was him, and I'm sure he was back to chasing does probably within a week.
Yeah,
this was in November, early November, but never did see him again. Like, he might have went off somewhere else, but we're just sure that was him. Took off across there, and for him to just turn on a dime like that and take off sprinting with a busted up shoulder, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
and there are so many places you can shoot them, and like you could still get pictures of them a week later.
Yep.
Yep. I don't think the first deer we went and tracked this year that I shot, I don't think he died.
Yeah.
And I hit him in the middle of the body, low, I think.
Yeah.
But like you said, about the center line of him.
Yep.
Front and back, and I don't think he died.
Yep. Man, they're tough.
It's crazy.
They really are.
Yep. So that goes into, to kind of bring that back, that all goes into making that decision on that deer, whether you shoot him or not. And there's a lot more into it than just, you're ethical or you're not because you didn't shoot that deer, I think. So the next thing I want to talk about, and you were talking about the 21-22 season. We talk about it a lot. That was a year, that would have been last year, correct? Yes, 21-22. Let me make sure I got that right. So that would have been last year's season. Talking about the number of bucks that we've seen between 2020 and then 21-22. So the 2021 season and then last year, not this past season that just happened, but we talk a lot about the shop. We've seen the number of bucks go way up from what we've seen in the past. And the NDA just came out with the report from the season before this past one. An estimated buck harvest of 2.9 million plus, which was the fourth highest in the last 10 hunting seasons, though it was down 2% from the highest buck average of the new century set in the year before, 2020. So 2020, which is the year that we saw the number of bucks just jump, and it was like everything that came in here with bucks, just the racks weren't quite as big as the last season, was the highest one in the new century. The highest on record, I think, was 1999. But since the turn, 2020 was the highest year, which we noticed up here, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year after, it was only down 2% from that. So it was still up again, like 2.9 million, almost 3 million bucks harvested.
Mm-hmm.
The antlerless harvest was 2.9. So the buck was 2.969. The antlerless harvest was 2.963. And that was down 8% from the previous season, which fell back below the antlered buck harvest. So what we kind of saw at the shop, I thought that was interesting, where it was mostly bucks, and it was like we weren't getting any does in. That was the case, obviously, everywhere, which I think it said that was the first year, 12%. The previous season antlerless harvest of 3.2 million was 12% higher than the season prior to that. So a significant jump. So the antlerless harvest before that, for however many years, had been higher than the buck harvest. So even last year was one of the first years that it was lower again than the buck harvest. So I thought that was interesting. Based on what we saw here at the shop, even the last 2 years, not just last year, that was pretty representative of what happened across the country, as far as buck to doe at least. And then we talked about, this past season not having quite the quality necessarily sized deer that we had last year, but still a lot of bucks. So I'll be interested to see again what comes out next year if we were right on that again. I wouldn't have guessed that there were more does harvested in 20, but at the same time there were more guys hunting for meat with the COVID and all that, so that does make some sense. But then last year I definitely would have, if you'd have made me guess for money or bet me, I would have bet that there were more bucks killed than does, and there were.
Yeah.
And I also think that speaks to kind of the mindset of the current hunter, like we talk about a lot. The guys are out there to shoot bucks more now, I think.
Yeah.
And there's more of them. I think our numbers are probably better. You look at that. I was looking at that chart, shows back to like 2007. And if you look right around the big years from the EHD, ton of does harvested, a lot more than bucks. Yeah. Which makes sense. Up until like 2016, it starts to even out again, which would have been 4 years after the big hit. So that makes some sense.
Yeah.
But I think now we're in a spot where we're killing more bucks. Guys are out there just to shoot bucks. But that does kind of go back to, I forget which episode it was, but we talked about an article on issues with not killing enough does from North American Whitetail here a few weeks ago, if you remember that. About how guys are maybe not as willing to shoot does now for whatever reason. I do think there is a balance. We're going to have to bring those numbers at least back to even. I think it's probably better when we're shooting more does than bucks, just to even out the numbers, because if already, like, what I tell people is if you can get a 2-to-1 buck to doe ratio, or doe to buck, 2 does to every buck, around here you're probably doing pretty good.
Around here, yeah.
Like shoot for a 1-to-1 or even a 2-to-1 buck to doe. But if you've got a 2-to-1 doe to buck as one guy hunting a property or even 2 guys hunting a property around here, I think that's an achievable goal, and it's a decent spot to be in, because there's a lot of places around here that are probably 3-4 to 1.
Absolutely.
Doe to buck.
Absolutely.
But if we're shooting more bucks than we are does, then that's just going to increase that issue, that problem, which is, which comes down to keeping an eye on what's on your current property. But I thought all that was interesting, just that data, all the stuff that you could take away from what they found as far as just a buck and doe harvest goes, and then how it related to what we saw up here.
Yeah.
I think we could probably do a better job of killing some does, and I killed 1 doe this year, and obviously I shot 2 bucks, and I think I killed 1, but we didn't find him. But I think it's pretty good practice, depending on your situation. If you are in like a 2-to-1 or even a 1-to-1, if you shoot a buck, maybe kill at least 1 doe, just to keep things evened out.
Yeah.
Or if you shoot a buck, some guys will do 2 does for every buck.
Yep.
Which I think is, depending on your situation, probably a good thing too.
Oh yeah.
So I think it would be beneficial to have our antlerless harvest up again.
I cannot figure out why Wayne County ain't got Kansas.
Right.
ain't got the those late winter seasons.
Yeah. Which would make a difference here for sure.
Absolutely. I believe we need it again.
And that could have played into some of those. I forget when that went out, but that could have played in some of the antlerless harvest as well, overall.
That's absolutely true.
Because if you've got half the counties now or whatever it is that don't have that season, that's a lot of does that aren't getting killed.
Correct.
And the numbers are there.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I was seeing 20 a night, where I wasn't able to see too far, and I was still seeing 20 deer a night. You know, like down there in the sprout patch, where we went, you can't see 120 yards, maybe. You know,
maybe
a couple of directions. And I was seeing 20 deer a night in there, and I know they weren't the same ones. You know,
right?
They're all moving through.
Yep.
You know, there's plenty.
I was driving around after season ended a couple weeks ago now, right before dark, down in the bottoms and in a cut bean field, and it was just dark enough I couldn't tell if there was winter wheat out there or not. If there was, it wasn't coming up very good yet. It had to have been late planted, but just a cut bean field, and I counted 40, and I know there was more back behind them, just out in the middle, congregated in this field.
Yeah.
It was dark enough where I couldn't see back all the way towards the timber, but I could count 40 deer just right there all in that one area.
Yeah.
And there were deer all over outside of that too.
Yep.
Well, when you can sit there and see that many deer congregated, and like what Dusty talks about, I mean, their numbers are ridiculous in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because they have the food, but it's also because we have the number of deer around. You know, they have that many more to pull in to where they're at. But, yeah, I don't know that the lawmakers or whoever is in charge of it in Illinois are looking at that data and are able to make heads and tails of it, as it seems that they're unable to do with most things. So I don't expect any changes.
Nah.
But I would love to sit down with somebody who has some power over that or some influence on that and talk to them about it, because something needs to happen, in my opinion.
All they want to know is how much money they can charge to sell a tag.
The issue is going to be,
or the car insurance lobbyists. You know, how many of these tags can we sell to keep our drivers from hitting them deer?
Yeah,
in my opinion, that's only two things that matters.
It is. Sure seems like it
to the people that makes the rules.
Yep. Unfortunately, most people that make the rules don't have any clue what goes on down here, south of 70, and definitely not in that outdoor
south of 80. It's 80, right?
Well, probably, yeah. But they don't have any clue, and part of that is their fault because they could talk to people or they could go out and experience it for themselves. Part of it is not, because you don't know what you don't know. But I don't think there's a lot of innocence in it, so I'm not going to give them too much credit. But if they don't do something about it, and we as hunters don't do something about it, or at least try to do what we can do, we're going to have issues with, even if we don't have another big EHD or something like that, whether it be disease, wiping them out. Because you think about going out to a cornfield, if there's 20 deer going out there and eating and one of them's diseased, there's a decent chance that the rest of them aren't going to get whatever it's got. Now you put 40 of them out there, and even if you just 2 of them are, you're so much more spread out. There's a lot more likelihood that more of them are going to eat on the same corn or whatever.
Yeah.
And now that spreads through the rest of them.
Yeah.
I think that could happen, or just lack of food. Because even in an ag area like this, if you go out and look outside right now,
ain't nothing.
if you ain't got winter wheat,
there's
nothing.
Correct.
They'll eat themselves to death, literally, because there's just not going to be enough left for them.
Yep.
And that's a real problem that could happen at some point if the population keeps going up.
Yep. In the last week or two, I've noticed deer in the places you don't see deer unless they ain't got nothing.
Exactly.
Yep. I mean, they're a long ways away from anything. A long time before dark, you know.
Yep.
And, of course, guys ain't in the woods now either, like
Right.
they have been. You
Right.
know, they're not feeling that pressure. But, yeah, they're way out in the middle, and they're picking for whatever they can find.
They're having to go find something.
Yep.
Which right now they're eating a lot of the whatever woody stuff is left in the timber. You know, this time of year they're going to have to eat that because that's what's left.
Yep.
If they don't have a food plot that you've got for them that's still going, still got something there for them, or again, your farmer doesn't put a cover crop down, or a farmer close to you. If one does, you can bet that's where the deer are going to be. And that's another issue, too, as far as the farmers go. You talk to any of them around here, the guys I've talked to that I hunt on or that, I've asked permission to and that they don't hunt, kill them all. Kill every one of them things because they're so hard on. You can walk down the edge of a bean field in September, and the first couple rows,
they ain't a thing.
No,
there
ain't a pod left on any of them if they've even made anything because they let them get that high.
Yep, wildlife of any kind really is not beneficial to a farmer.
No, and that's gonna have some effect on them. Even as the numbers get higher there.
Yeah,
of course.
If that was my income, and I realize the potential gains that I lose from them things coming out and eating my beans just, every single night. Yeah. And the groundhog that camps right there on the edge.
Right. Rabbits.
Just decimates it. Yeah.
That was pretty interesting in Jeff's plot. The beans that we got planted out there. They were running the opposite way, so it wasn't like the first few rows. But I'd say probably the first 10 foot in outside of the tall weeds, those beans just didn't make hardly anything because that's about as far out as the rabbits felt comfortable going.
That's right.
And they just kept them down.
That's right.
Everything else grew good, but where the rabbits were. So, of course, there's not as many of them around as there was at one time.
Yeah.
If you don't have the cover for them.
I do think they're making a comeback. I really do.
Places where there's cover, I've seen them, which, like the places we went and done some stuff, or there at Jeff's where we've added some more. Some cover in places. We've taken some away from them, but added food. And a little bit of cover in different places, and his woods now is just so thick. There's a ton of them there at the cabin. You know how thick that is.
Yes.
I mean, there ain't nothing killing them in there.
Yeah.
But, but the deer, I think that's an angle that could be worked too, is not just coming from the deer hunters, but coming from the farmers. And maybe that's something that would have a little more influence on the people making the laws because there's a lot more economy coming from agriculture than there is from deer hunters. There's a lot more.
Let's see. If the state was farming and then they realized that the deer was eating, then it'd be open season.
Yep, you're right. So there's got to be somebody that's
probably bad. I shouldn't. I probably shouldn't say all this like that. But man, that's sure how it feels and looks.
Yep. There's guys in the ag industry that have enough stroke in Springfield or Chicago that maybe that's something that could happen. But I do think, like I said, I would love to sit down with somebody that was in that field, whatever you want to call it, and talk to him about it because it could potentially be a real issue.
Yeah. Oh, and don't get me wrong. Like I mean, this is my father-in-law. He's farmed his whole life. A whole lot of them. The majority of the people that I'm around all the time, they're farmers. I understand this is a problem for them.
Right.
I like shooting deer too.
Right.
I like trying to grow big deer. But the stuff we're doing, that's we're trying to make the deer better. And we could say that we're trying to keep the deer out of their stuff, out of the crops, right?
Right. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, and I think in a way to make the deer bigger too, though, is we have to keep those doe numbers at a reasonable amount because, like we talked about before, if you've got so many does in your area, that buck's going to try to breed as many does as he can. It's just built into their DNA. That's what they do to survive is breed. It ain't like us. They go out there and it's instinctual for them to breed every doe that they come across that is in heat. So if you've got 20 does that buck's got to breed, we'll just say in his little area, he's trying to breed 20 does between the 1st of November and say the first week of December. He's going to be busy for that whole month, 6-week span. He's going to be wore out come the middle of December.
Yeah.
If you shrink that number to 10 or 5 for that one buck, then he's got his breeding done in 2 weeks. It's going to be a lot more higher intensity rut, so you're going to have a better chance at killing that buck too.
Because he's going to be moving.
Yep, because he's going to be after those does in that shorter window. It's going to be more predictable.
Yeah.
He ain't going to be as sporadic, spread out over 6 weeks, and he's going to have a lot more time after he's done breeding to go back to building up his nutrition, getting ready for the winter.
Yeah.
And getting where he needs to be physically, so then all the extra stuff can go into growing antler growth, which is going to grow bigger deer. Yeah. So it all plays into that as well.
Oh yeah, and you've made a very strong case before on too many does. They just eat themselves out of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got this much food, whatever whatever area you got, there is.
You have a holding capacity.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's going to be, what the habitat that you have on your place, or in, you and the neighbors combined, whatever, a certain area. There's only so many deer that's realistically going to want to stay there before they start getting nervous and uncomfortable.
Right.
And simply not enough food to supply anymore. You'd want to stay well below that threshold to know that they're all healthy.
Yeah.
And that there is plenty for the ones that you got.
Yep.
I know that you'd rather take care of the ones that you got well than trying to have more than you really can and not doing any of them any good.
Yeah, and deer don't understand rations. That's another thing where we got to think about them as wild animals and not humans.
I don't either.
Yo, if you knew you had 10 pounds of corn to last you 2 months.
Doggone, we're going to have a great 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly. That's the way that the deer are going to go about it. They're just going to, as soon as they can get that 10 pounds eaten, it's going to be gone, But whereas we're going to try to make that last as long as possible. And maybe we'll go find more. They're just going to eat all of that. And then if there ain't none left, who knows how far they're going to have to go to find more.
We're walking.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the harsh of the winter, it doesn't take very long for them to lose a lot of body mass and health.
Yeah.
And then the next year, if they do make it, you have a lot less healthy herd just from the amount of food that was available. So, and that plays into not only your deer herd, but also, like you said, like your habitat management and how much natural browse you have and your food plots and all that, those ratios. But I do think before you do that stuff, because you can do all that stuff, and if you still have too many deer, like you said, for your area, all you've done is feed them for another 2 weeks. And then after that, it's still going to be, you still got too many deer. So I think that's something that guys, and maybe that's a point there, if you have a limited budget, but you're still trying to grow big deer and you can only do so much, one thing you for sure can do is kill some more does if you have too many deer in your area. And then you're going to see a definite benefit from that, in my opinion. And that's if they're too high. If you got good deer numbers and good buck-to-doe ratio and all that, and you're not over your holding capacity in your neighborhood, then by all means do what you feel you need to do.
Yeah.
But if you are in that bad spot where we could potentially end up, especially with guys not killing as many does, then it's something you got to look at. And that could be hugely beneficial if you go out there and shoot some does next year, even if you kill 2. Because that's 2 does plus maybe a couple fawns apiece. So that's 6 deer that you've taken out just from burning 2 $15 doe tags or whatever they are.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefit in that, I think, if you need to do it. But it all goes back to also we're kind of ones that have to be responsible for that, I think, because the state's not going to help us out any. So you have to do it on your micro level, because on a macro level, it's just not going to happen. Unless someone with enough stroke's going to have to get with the right people and talk to them about it and make things happen.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason. There's a pretty good reason, and it has a lot to do with the color of the states, but that Missouri and Iowa have a lot better conservation programs than we do. And Missouri's is not great, but it's a lot better than Illinois'.
Yeah.
And I think Iowa, especially as far as deer go, there's a reason they're the Mecca, and they know it, and they do a good job, even at the state level.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's things guys up there would change and do different. But compared to what we've got here, I think they just do so much a head and shoulders better job than our state does.
Yeah.
So which puts more on us as the individual hunter that we have to take care of.
So then you think about it, how good might we have it, and we're not seeing the full potential of it because of the way things are managed. And we've still got tremendous deer. We really do.
Yep.
Where, the guys in Iowa, their system, the management really seems to be top notch.
Yeah.
And like they've got excellent deer. But we're seeing it too. And even though ours isn't managed nearly as well as theirs, what could ours be? Right.
Yep. Which I think, and again, we can sit here and blame the state because there is a lot that they could do, especially on ground that we can't do anything about. Like there's certain places that you either can't hunt, people won't let you, or it's public ground that is state managed. we can still at least do our best to manage what we can control, and make it as good as possible. Because I think there is still, like what you're talking about with the potential, unlocked potential for the deer that we could have.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously that there with the lack of management from the state, but I do think there's still a significant amount of potential that we have not reached on an individual level because of the lack of management from deer hunters, not just on the state level.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of guys that are not necessarily practicing the best management. And
Absolutely.
you can still go out there and hunt the way you want to hunt and kill the deer you want to kill the deer you want to kill while managing them properly.
Yeah.
Whether it be providing them, good nutrition, killing, even if you want to go kill that spike buck, kill a doe after you kill him, or kill a doe instead of that spike. Maybe you don't have that opportunity, but if you got neighbors that you can talk to and maybe try to get on the same page, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be for you about making bigger deer, but it could be about making healthier deer and a healthier herd overall, which in turn is going to create bigger deer. So I think there is a lot of potential that we haven't reached because of hunters on an individual level as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think once we reach that point where we're a lot farther along in how well we're doing, then maybe we could work on the state level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got to do all we could do first.
Absolutely. I can't sit here and say it's the state's fault that I'm
Right.
not seeing booners
Right.
on my,
Yeah.
however much I hunt. Yeah, it ain't like that.
Right.
But yeah, there could be, it could all be, things could be better.
Yep.
For sure.
Absolutely. And they probably always will be able to be better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if we can get, like you said, instead of just sitting around and blaming someone else, there is a lot that we can take into our own hands and do ourselves and make better. So I think if we do that, then we can kind of work towards maybe getting some legislation and all that stuff as a group of hunters, because it's going to take a big group. I mean, it ain't just going to be one guy, that does something about it. So that's pretty much everything I want to talk about this week, or everything I had.
All of that being said, I still have some big habitat ideas that I want to try to get done this spring.
Yeah.
Excited about the prospect of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully
and that's what, we're in this room already trying to practice good management the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
And even every year, like what you just said, we're still looking at stuff we can improve.
Yeah.
And trying to do better every year.
Do a little bit.
Yep.
Assess, did it work, did it not?
Yep.
And if it did,
No matter how good we thought we
better?
did this year, we're still trying to get better next year.
Absolutely. Yep. I want the little bit that I do have to play with, I want it to be just as good as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't. I've got more than I got more than a whole lot of guys, to play with.
Yep.
I got way less than some people
Yeah.
to play with, But what I got, I want to make it just the best I can for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try to make it something it's not, but what can I do to make it the best,
Exactly.
And with the neighbors and everything in mind, what can I do to grow the biggest ones that I can,
Yeah. Because imagine if everybody had that mindset, if you got 40 acres, if you just try to make that 40 acres the best 40 acres it can be, based on what it already is and what you think you can do to improve it, and then your neighbor does that as well on his 120, and then his neighbor does it on his 80, then you've got 240 acres of prime deer habitat. Everybody in the neighborhood's going to benefit from that. Even if you got 10 acres or 20 acres, that piece of the cabin's 10 acres, but there's still more stuff I want to do to it because I know I can make it better for the deer herd in the neighborhood. I'm not planning, I can't hold bucks on 10 acres, unless I'm just have the spot that he's wanting to bed that year is somewhere on that 10. That's the max, one buck, probably one mature buck, but I'm still going to try to make that 10 as attractive and as beneficial to the deer herd as I can for the whole herd around. I'm going to do as much with that 10 acres as I can do. And I think if everybody had that mindset, then think of the snowball effect.
Yep. That's right.
Everybody that's managing ground for deer, everybody that's hunting on private ground that has something they can do with it. Because there's permission farms, like I have that permission farm I'm hunting that's 160. I just can't do much with it because it's not mine to do with. But if it's ground that you can do stuff with, there is enough of that kind of ground out there that people aren't doing things with, if they could get on the right page and have some good direction and do something, a little bit's going to help as long as you're not doing it the wrong way, then we're really going to see a benefit from that. Just everybody in general.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you've got more than some people but less than others, but you just try to make it as good as you can make it, and then you know what's going on in the neighbors, and whether they're helping you or not, at least you're doing what you can. And then maybe your neighbors see what you're doing and see that you're having some success with it.
They get a little excited too.
And then they want to do it.
Yeah.
Or they start asking you questions about it. And then that's not the time to be that jerk neighbor that doesn't want to tell them because you want to keep all the deer to yourself.
Correct.
Because if they're doing it, there's likely going to be more bigger deer around. So your opportunity is just going to grow. Yep. It's not like they're going to steal the deer from you.
Nah.
Could that happen? Could they pull a buck from you that you had? Sure.
Yeah, you could likely do the same from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, though, there's just going to be more targets out there for you.
Yeah.
Because maybe now you got 200, say your neighbor's got 200 that you manage. Now maybe instead of having 4 bucks there, you've got 6 or 8 that are potential shooters for you.
Yep.
So you've just doubled your chances at seeing a buck because he's using both properties instead of just one or not at all. Maybe he pulls them from the neighbors on the other side of him that's ground that can't be managed for deer. Maybe it's all mostly ag ground. Maybe he pulls some bucks to him, and then they get on him, and you pull them from him, and vice versa, and you guys got deer using the same 2 properties.
Yep.
You've seen benefit from it. So I think that's another thing, too, that a little bit goes back into the first conversation we had about the guys commenting about how unethical guys were. We're so quick to jump to judgment on other guys hunting and want to run them down and not help them out. If we would lend a helping hand, I think, more often.
Oh, yeah.
Than just running everybody down or trying to keep things to ourselves instead of trying to help and put good information out there and sharing what we've learned, what works, what doesn't work. If we would do more of that, we'd be better off in general, too.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. And that's just in life in general, but even, especially in managing deer.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you can't expand the amount of good ground around you just by being friendly with your neighbors, getting them on the same page.
Yeah.
And maybe they just don't want to be on the same page, even if maybe they want to manage it a little better, so they ask you questions about that, but they're still killing 3.5-year-old deer. You're you're going to have more potential because they can't kill them all.
Correct.
For bigger deer to be on your property more often.
Yep.
So I think that's something to keep in mind too. But you got anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. That's almost an hour, so we'll wrap this thing up. I did mention, if you guys follow us on Facebook, and it was on the Full Draw Friday episode. Hopefully you guys checked that out. If you didn't, go back and listen to it. Talked about some food plot prep this week. Getting ready because it's going to be here pretty soon. Frost season is pretty much already here. I mean, this next month or so. So if you didn't go listen to that one, I think it was episode 13. Go check it out. But we partnered with Rodney Hawkins. He's our newest partner on the podcast. And what he does is he helps guys find a piece of ground to manage or hunt themselves. So all the stuff we're talking about, if you're looking for that piece of private ground that you can manage and put all this stuff, these things that we're talking about to work and see them in practice, if you're looking for that place to do that, Rodney's the guy to talk to. He grew up hunting and fishing here in Southern Illinois, and he's now putting his love for the outdoors into selling recreational properties as a land specialist with Midwest Farm and Land. If you haven't heard of those guys, Midwest Farm and Land, they're not really your average real estate company. Last year, they sold over $85 million worth of ground. So they're not a typical real estate company where I know they do some residential stuff and things like that, but their bread and butter is recreational properties for guys looking to do the things we're talking about. And they've got agents like Rodney all over Illinois, so they're really a local company with a national reach. For more information, you can contact Rodney directly at 618-925-3153, and he'll get you taken care of. He also has recently started his own company called RHO Outdoors. They currently have hard and soft-shelled blinds and blind chairs, all from Radix Blinds, in addition to an all-natural scent elimination product called Camo Dust, which I don't have any experience with. I don't know if you've ever messed with that or not. You guys can check that out at camodust.com, though. Get more information on that, or you can talk to Rodney about it. As for the blinds, Nate actually spent a lot of time in the soft-sided Radix blind this season, and from talking to you, even going and sitting with you in it, pretty happy with that.
Very, yep. I just went yesterday and took the cover off, get it put away for the off-season.
Yep.
Stores very nicely. Surprisingly, that thing is like the biggest beanie hat that you can imagine.
Yeah,
and
just slips on and slips off.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I got it folded up very nicely into a big garbage bag to be put away for the off-season. Should last for a really long time doing that, you know.
Yep.
And again, you can have 3 of these things for the price of one of the big ones.
Yeah, one of the bigger hard-sided.
Yep.
Yep.
Very pleased with this thing.
Yep. And I thought the windows were pretty quiet for zipper windows. The thermal protection was pretty good. That thing's pretty good as far as wind and cold.
Yes.
I think if a guy was out there on like one of those mornings you're talking about where it's 5 degrees, I think you could throw a heater in there and maybe zip up one extra window and be pretty comfortable. So if you guys are interested in those blinds or anything else that Rodney has at RG Outdoors, you can send them a message to their Facebook page, which is just RG Outdoors. You can email them, rgoutdoors@yahoo.com, or again, you can call him directly at 618-925-3153. So anything he's got there, I know he's got some new products coming up too that he's going to have. He said he was working on getting, hopefully within the next couple weeks or something, I think. So go check him out. Again, newest partner, so we're excited about that. Our other partners for the podcast, as you guys may know, Grandpa Ray Outdoors. They specialize in providing the best nutrition for whitetail deer on your property, starting with the soil. They offer a full line of high-quality food plot seed and plant foods. They were started in 2015, but John up there has been in the seed and nutrition business since 91. They've got over 14 different food plot blends to choose from, so you're not going to have any trouble finding what you're looking for. They've got fall and spring blends, corn and beans, switchgrass, liquid fertilizer, soil test kits, you name it. They've pretty much got it. They're not just about selling their products, so any questions you have about what blends would be best for your specific property or your situation, that way you can achieve the best results possible, they're going to answer those for you. Like us, John and his team don't believe in a cookie-cutter approach to wildlife nutrition. They'll treat you and your situation individually. And again, they're not about just a fancy label or package. They're about good quality seed and taking care of their clients. And you'll notice a theme here with all of our partners. This is stuff that we use, whether it be the blinds with Rodney, the seed from Grandpa Ray's. We've used this stuff. Nate's used it all over his property. We've used it all over the Midwest on client properties, on Jeff's, on any of mine. We're putting down Grandpa Ray seed. I've been more than pleased with everything that I've put in the ground from him. With the amount of actual good seed you get for your money. I think a lot of guys struggle with, they look at the price of that 2-pound bag of Grandpa Ray Outdoor seed versus the 2-pound bag of X brand on a Walmart shelf, and they think it's kind of high. But when you actually get to looking at the amount of seed you get, it's actually cheaper to buy the good stuff because you're getting more bang for your buck, more actual seed and not all the inert matter and coating and all that stuff as you would be with the other stuff.
Or the stuff that's been sitting on the shelf in Walmart for 4 years.
Correct. Or seeds that are not necessarily beneficial or are just there for the name of them that take up space in a bag that they can charge more money for. So go check them out if you guys want to support us at grandparrayoutdoors.com. Use discount code RHO podcast. That's all lowercase, no space, and you'll get 5% off your order there. So again, that's a way you guys can support us and support your deer herd and get yourself some good food plot seed if you're going to do any of that stuff this spring. Make sure you get that ordered soon too, because I know, again, it's coming up quick. Sometimes with shipping and stuff, it gets a little off. You don't want to be waiting for something and miss your window of planting. So if you can get that stuff ordered now, you're going to be in a lot better shape. I do have some of it in the shop. I'm going to try to get some more. So if you want to come see us about it or see me in the shop, I'll get you hooked up. Another one that we use, at least some guys we know use over in Missouri, is Rack's Big Game Supplements. They're a veteran-owned company out of northeast Nebraska. They're deer hunters just like you and me. At the time when they developed their Rack's products, they were just looking to get more out of the feed and mineral market than existed. They've developed their products through years of research and came up with one of the best mixes available that's going to help improve your herd's overall health while not feeding non-target species like the raccoons. They've got minerals, protein blocks, pelletized feed, and meal feed. They're all specifically designed for whitetails. And if you guys want to go to their website, check them out, and support us at the same time, you can use discount code RHO22. That's capital RHO and the number 22 at checkout, and you'll get 5% off your entire order at racksmineral.com, raksmineral.com, or you can stop by the shop and see what I have here. I know I've got some of the bagged mineral left and maybe one protein block from those guys. Had a lot of success with where we've used that, like on Rod's property and all that we talk about all the time. That's another way to support your deer herd's overall health. If you combine that stuff with the Grandpa Ray Outdoors food plot seed, if you're running plots and some minerals and some protein, I think you're definitely going to see a benefit from that kind of stuff. Definitely can't hurt anything. So check them out if that's what you're wanting to do. You can also support us by going to ridgehunteroutdoors.com. Anything you find on there, we've got our own blend of clover and chicory that we really like. I know you've frost seeded some of that last year. That's what we've got at Jeff's property. I've obviously used it in the past, put it on a bunch of client properties as well. It's grown well all the way from Oklahoma to eastern Kentucky and north and south, everywhere in between, almost down to Tennessee, and, of course, here at home too. So we really like it. If you want to get some of that ordered to do your frost seeding or even some new planting this spring, use the discount code RHOPOD, that's all caps, and you'll get 10% off of that, or anything else on the website, you can use that same discount code. Also, it's getting into consulting season, so if you have a property and you're just not sure what to do with it, and you want to get started with some management stuff, but you want to do it the right way and get a good start so you're not wasting time and money, we can help you out with that. And that's, again, at ridgehunteroutdoors.com. There's a consulting and management tab. Click on that, and you can find all the information on that. Send us a message. We'll get you set up. You can also go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there. We're still doing that giveaway. Once we hit 25 reviews on there, we'll pick a name. One of the 25 people will win a Wild Game Innovations trail camera package. It's the trail camera, it's the batteries, it's the SD card. It's like a $90 value just for spending 2 minutes of your time and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, which really helps us out. I know it doesn't seem like a big thing, but it helps put us up towards the top as far as suggested podcast and all that. So big benefit there. Also follow us on Spotify, kind of does the same thing, and it keeps you updated when stuff comes out. Another way to do that is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll know, I think you got to hit the notification bell too. You'll know when any of our podcasts come out. You'll know when any of our new videos come out. Like we're going to do some this spring. I'd like to do some more on your property at some point. Just see what you got going, especially if you're going to do that new project.
Yes.
I think it'd be cool to do some, kind of like what we did at Jeff's last year. We could almost do kind of a vlog on it, do some drone footage, some ground footage, talk about what we're doing and all that. I'd like to do that at the cabin too, that project that I was going to do last year. If I get to doing it this year, hopefully sometime next month or in March, I'll get to start on that. But all that stuff will be on our YouTube channel, so you guys can go subscribe to that so you know when that comes out. And then like and comment on any of the videos. That also helps us out. That's pretty much all I got. So we appreciate you guys tuning in every week. We set a goal coming into this season for the podcast, and we're real close to hitting it. So thanks, guys, for that, for tuning in each and every week. And letting us take up some of your time. So hopefully you're learning something and enjoying it, or at least entertaining you. We'll catch you guys again next Monday.